Hey guys, it's Charlie. And what I have in front of me here is my stack of 32 of my favorite movies with a couple of extra pulls. Now, this is going to be my own opinion on where my favorites are as of now. I haven't ever done one of these videos, so this is going to be a first for me. So, let's get started with some guilty pleasures here. Okay, best documentaries ever. What you have here is Never Sleep Again, which is basically the definitive version for the Nightmare on Elm Street films, and Crystal Lake Memories. 1428 Films, they did an amazing job with these documentaries. It never feels boring. They've always been my favorites. So those are honorable mentions right there. What we have right here is Suspiria, Tenebrae. Two of my ideas for the best giallos that I've ever seen. Suspiria, I would put above Tenebrae because this is very visually beautiful. If you're ever looking into getting into a giallo movie, Suspiria. I would definitely consider Suspiria a giallo. I know some people don't. I do because it has the elements that make giallos work. But if you want a real, pure giallo, Tenebrae is just as good. Now, right here is a representation of two of my favorite Studio Ghibli movies. This is Kiki's Delivery Service, and on the inside is Whisper of the Heart. Now, I'm still fairly new to Studio Ghibli. From what I've seen so far, Kiki's Delivery Service is my favorite just because it's a visually awesome story of a young girl, essentially a witch, coming into her own in a new town on her own. I love that idea of a story. If anybody is ever looking into a Studio Ghibli film to get into, an anime film, this is going to be the one that I will say is Kiki's Delivery Service. The Whisper of the Heart is also a personal favorite of mine. Another honorable mention right here. This is horror fun. Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight. I love the Tales from the Crypt series. I grew up watching it when I was really young. It's probably one of my first experiences with horror. And this film is a lot of fun, especially seeing Billy Zane hamming it up. Hi, Starla. Another honorable mention right here is the Transformers movie. I have owned this on VHS, DVD, and Blu-ray. I have pretty much wore them down. Now, this is just a kid in me wanting to say it is an awesome movie. Pretty much. I have always loved sections of this movie, like especially the attack on Autobot City, when you just see all the Decepticons laying waste and Autobots fighting back, and just pretty much that entire 25 minutes, I want to say, of the attack on Autobot City. Kid me loved it. I just loved every bit of that. Now, let's get into the 32. Okay, starting with Late Night with the Devil. Honestly, this is the best found footage movie that I have ever seen because it took those elements of found footage, which I'm not a big fan of. I'm not a found footage guy, but it made it work with the 70s aesthetic. And I will definitely praise this one for what it accomplished. Is it a perfect movie? No. But honestly, it's one of the best found footages because it does not feel forced. It did not have the jump scares that I get tired of, that become tiresome. It was just a story, and I really hope to see more from the lead actor that was in this one, which is this guy right here, who is also in Ant-Man. Okay, now, number 31. Okay, this might upset some people here. Best zombie movie ever made. Low on my list, I understand, but I love what this does for zombies, and I love the commentary that it had on society in like the 70s and our obsession with the mall. You know, even back then, obsession with the mall, That's what this kind of focuses on here, and just the fall of humans, essentially, during the zombie apocalypse. It's also the movie that's playing right now, so you're going to hear little bits of Dawn of the Dead. This is a really great version from Second Sight because it has so many extras and so many different versions of the movie. If you ever get Dawn of the Dead, this is the one I swear by. Also, at number 30, I have The Warriors. Also, another 70s movie that has basically society and gangs ideas. This is a really great release from Imprint. It has a whole lot of extras. I put this slightly above Dawn of the Dead because I really love the feel of... Honestly, it's just the best gang movie that I've ever seen. And I stand by that this is an awesome movie. It's also still kind of fairly new to me, so that could also be why I still feel impressed by this movie whenever I see it, because it's still kind of new to me. Okay, number 29, we're getting into the 87 horror. Okay. Number 29, The Evil Dead 2. Honestly, this is my favorite. I'm going to call this a slasher movie of all time because it has all the elements of horror. It's basically a soft reboot of the first one, but it took those elements of the first one and it refined it, made it work so much better. Honestly, this is 90 minutes of pure fun. I love this movie. I also love Freddy Krueger. Freddy Krueger is the one that got me into horror in the first place. Dream Warriors is my favorite Nightmare on Elm Street above the original, I want to say, because this had the elements of Freddy still being scary, but also having his jokey elements. And honestly, that music video right there by Dokken, that just was the icing on the cake. You know, because this is pure rock and roll. And I love Dream Warriors. It's literally my favorite Nightmare on Elm Street movie. And I have it specifically on VHS on this guy because I did not pull out my Nightmare on Elm Street collection that I have on Blu-ray and DVD for this particular one. Okay, so now we're at number 28, which is Creepshow. Another Romero movie. Working with Stephen King on this, the best anthology movie that I have ever seen. I mean, I don't know how much more to say on this one. The comic book aspects of it for 82, it is amazing what they did with this one. So I definitely feel this is worthy of checking out for people who have not checked out Creepshow. Okay. Now, what we have here are number 27, which is RoboCop right here. An awesome sci-fi movie. The guy died and they still made him go into work. And inside here is Dredd. But inside of it, I also have my number 27, which is Dredd. My number 27, which is The Fifth Element. Dredd has a better looking cover. That's why I put Dredd over The Fifth Element. Okay. Number 26, we have The Wolfman right here. 1941. I love this movie. I don't have an individual copy of it, so this one just rests with the Universal Monsters collection right now. But that's an awesome cover nonetheless. I really like that one. Okay, so number 25, I think we're on right here. We have Inglourious Basterds right here. Quentin Tarantino's opus, I feel. Now, I know a lot of people might not be into the Tarantino. I understand that. For me, what makes Inglourious Basterds stand out, because it's basically a what-if history movie. The history being that Hitler. Hitler was an honest person, and this is a what if scenario of what if this band of mercenaries decided to take him out while he was at a movie premiere, basically. Simple idea, awesome movie, because you have to wonder, why didn't that ever happen? Okay. Next, what we have here, I've kind of lost count of my movies right now. I probably should have taken better notes. But next up, we have The Shawshank Redemption right here. The best movie that I can think of that had really great narration. Now, I know in an earlier review I had issues with the movie The Monkey because it overused narration, because it just did not work for a horror movie to have a character who's basically describing everything that's happening to him instead of physically showing the actual horror. In a movie like The Monkey, which was also based on a Stephen King product, it doesn't work. It doesn't work because horror is not that way. But a movie like The Shawshank Redemption, or to a better extent even Forrest Gump, it works. The narration is actually the benefit of what made the movie work so well. And it is such a travesty that this movie did not get as much more acclaim than it did in 94. But I mean, it was up against films like Pulp Fiction, Forrest Gump also. So it was some pretty steep competition. But I get it. This movie is honestly one of those movies that when you see it on TV, you're going to sit through and watch it because it's awesome. So that's Shawshank Redemption. Next, we have a twofer here. We have, on the inside of this guy, we have Rocky, which I feel is an awesome coming of age, rise to the top movie for a boxer. And then also we have Taxi Driver, which is number 19 in my favorites. I doubled this one up because it felt like those two go together, being 70s movies. This is still fairly new to me. I've only seen this one twice. So what makes Taxi Driver, I feel, work, like why I put it so high up in my favorites compared to other 70s movies, is it's basically this idea of that's still relevant today, of society falling apart, basically. And this guy, played by Robert De Niro, trying to find his way in the society that's falling apart. But at the same time, he's misunderstood. And he's basically trying to live a normal life, but he's not the kind of guy that lives a normal life. He's like very much the definition of an anti-hero. And just the journey that this guy goes through and where he winds up in the end is... it surprised me. I haven't been surprised by a movie in a while, and this one definitely had me surprised because I had it figured for going somewhere completely different in the third act. But I was surprised, and I really enjoyed this one. Okay, next we have the first of a couple Alfred Hitchcock movies, which in this one is The Birds. Awesome movie. The look of what they used to make the effects work in this one, it still holds up today. Like, it looks amazing. The way that they articulated it to make this film work. It is one of my favorite Alfred Hitchcock movies, definitely one that I suggest a lot. There'll be a couple more on this top 10 as we get closer to the top. Next up, what we have here is number 20, which is 12 Angry Men. Honestly, probably the oldest movie that I have in my favorites. It's black and white. It's got Henry Fonda. The story of this one, which is basically one man on a jury trying to convince 11 other men of the truth that he perceives. In this case, it's a study in what made the older movies, black and white films, work, because they didn't have the leverage of CGI or special effects. So it's basically just 12 men in a room, and they're just playing off of each other throughout the entire movie. This is what makes One Axe work right here. If anybody ever asks me for like what the best like black and white movie is, I'm gonna say 12 Angry Men. Next up, number 19, we have The Terminator. James Cameron's best, one of his best movies, and his first real brush in with success under his own name. Because before this, he was just a set designer working for Roger Corman. I feel that the thing that really stands out for me with The Terminator is the love story aspect to this one. Because you have this really amazing sci-fi movie, but then it evolves into a love story, basically. And it comes so far out of left field, but with this movie, it works so well. This is probably like the most romantic movie that I've seen when you're really watching this movie and understanding what happened to make this work. It's just a great movie and one of my favorite Schwarzenegger movies. Okay, next up, another Alfred Hitchcock. We have Rear Window right here. Rear Window, another one of those like essentially one-act plays played up as a movie. On the inside of this one, though, we have another great movie from '85, actually, which is Fright Night. I put Fright Night in with Rear Window because if you've ever seen Fright Night, it is essentially the same story as Rear Window. It's just modernized with a vampire now, instead of the main character being injured and stuck in this room because he's in a wheelchair. Great movie, great looking effects. This is one of Hitchcock's best. I have a few Hitchcock best, but that's definitely one of them. Okay. Next up right here, what we have is Spider-Man No Way Home. The best Spider-Man movie there is because it literally has 3 cinematic Spider-Man in one movie, and the way that these guys play off of each other, it made it work. The way the villains play off each other, it worked. This is as close to a Sinister Six movie as we're going to get for right now, and it worked because the villains were already established in previous movies, and they were all just brought together instead of just bringing all 6 of them in one movie. I don't feel it would have worked that other way if they were all original villains instead of villains that were already established. So thank you, Kevin Feige, for giving us basically one of the best interpretations of Sinister Six that we could have gotten. And a bunch of my movies just went on the floor. Okay, so what we have here is Raiders of the Lost Ark. Raiders of the Lost Ark is a great Harrison Ford movie, a great Spielberg movie in general. It has great action in this one. And honestly, this is probably the definition of 80s action. I would say right here is Indiana Jones because it came in 81. So it was the first one right off the bat. And I mean, for what it did, practically, it's amazing, honestly. And like, I can literally just sit back and hear all the backstories of this production and just listen, just listen to all the elements that made this movie work. It's amazing. Next up, we have Big Trouble in Little China. Big Trouble in Little China is essentially kind of like John Carpenter's version of Raiders of the Lost Ark. This one has the added element of supernatural and Asian kung fu, basically. This was the movie that John Carpenter made when he wanted to do a kung fu movie. He essentially took that premise he had always wanted to do, and he gave it to us in Big Trouble in Little China. It is such a trippy movie. If anybody ever asks me for a John Carpenter movie to watch that's not Halloween, I say Big Trouble in Little China. Big Trouble in Little China for sure. Also, just an honorable mention for another John Carpenter movie because Big Trouble in Little China was there. Assault on Precinct 13. If this was a top 40, I would definitely have had Assault on Precinct 13 on there because this is the movie that Carpenter made in order to get noticed to do Halloween. Essentially, this was his first movie right here, right off the bat. It's just an amazing movie about gang warfare like The Warriors, but this one came out in 76, 77, roughly around there. So it was basically before Halloween in 78. Now, what we have here are a couple of different monster movies now. We got Nosferatu right here by Robert Eggers. Pretty much a very beautifully done interpretation of early Dracula that's not Dracula because Nosferatu was what was created because Dracula was public domain essentially, so they were able to interpret it a different way instead of the Dracula story, which became Nosferatu essentially. Next up, we have Jaws. Pretty much the movie that solidified how summer blockbusters would work. Literally, there's so many stories that have been told about this movie, so many documentaries. How Spielberg made this movie work with a shark that didn't work is amazing. It's a credit to his career as a director, and it was pretty much his second movie right off the bat to just get his name known if Duel didn't work, pretty much. And that's pretty much it. I mean, so many people have talked about Jaws, and I don't really know what more I can add to it aside from just the motivation that Spielberg did to make this movie work, and just the idea of three men out on sea. The suspense build-up. This is just like a masterclass in how you build up suspense when your main villain does not work, which is the shark. And then, of course, I have another honorable mention here. What I have is Jurassic Park inside my Jurassic World Dominion case because I really like that case. Jurassic Park is probably the movie I've watched the most, if it's not the Transformers movie. I've owned this one numerous times. VHS, DVD, Blu-ray. And pretty much that movie never gets old to me because that was the pinnacle of where CGI very slowly became a thing. Because it was done the right way in this one, which was sparingly among live action props because live action was still a thing and CGI was still new. They weren't sure how it would work. And I mean, the fun thing about Jurassic Park when you're watching it, there are little things like little glitches because like when the T-Rex attacks the Gallimimus in the Gallimimus stampede scene, if you watch, the Gallimimus will literally disappear into the T-Rex. The one that the T-Rex is attacking, it'll disappear into the T-Rex and then randomly reappear. It's a weird glitch, but when you know it's there, you'll see it. There's no way around it. You will see it. But it's because CGI was still so new and they just did not know how to refine it just yet. So it just stayed in the film, but it's still an awesome movie, and probably like my favorite dinosaur movie in general is Jurassic Park. Okay, so what we have here is number 11 in my favorites, which is Godzilla Minus One inside of my number 7, which is Birdman. Birdman, literally the best Michael Keaton movie ever made, because this is Michael Keaton struggling with the idea of being more than just like a one-note actor known for, in this movie, Birdman, but in reality, we're all thinking Batman, living in the shadow of his Batman movies. Literally one of my favorite movies. The psychological, because I do love psychological movies, and there's another psychological movie that is going to pop up here in just a second. The psychological aspect of this movie is what made it work, and just the idea, just the notion that they got Batman to play Birdman, and it worked because Keaton is a national treasure as an actor. Number 10, Goodfellas. Goodfellas is the best mafia movie that I have ever seen. If anybody ever asks me what mafia movie that they should see to get started in mafia, Goodfellas. Also, another movie that had really great narration and made use of a character that was speaking narration basically in his head. It worked for this movie because that was the style of Scorsese's best. Okay, number 9. We have Silence of the Lambs, the best psychological horror movie that I've seen. Now, this is where I kind of have that little leeway with horror. Is if somebody asks me what my favorite horror movie is, I will say Evil Dead 2. Because that is horror. Essentially dark horror comedy, but that's horror. If somebody asks me what my favorite horror movie just in general is, Silence of the Lambs. Because it's psychological horror. Psychological horror for me works best because it gets under your skin. This movie gets under my skin when I watch it. And I mean, it's just the idea that Anthony Hopkins really just eats up that scenery, really gets under your skin, and he's only in there for like 18 minutes. It's not his movie. This is Clarice's movie, and she's going after Buffalo Bill. And the contrast between those two, Jodie Foster, Clarice Starling's character, and Anthony Hopkins as her essential father figure that helps her solve the case. It's an amazing story, and just a masterclass in how you make movies pop off the screen, basically. Because I don't think there's ever going to be another psychological thriller like Silence of the Lambs, because it was just like a one-time thing. But it works so well because of the way it was casted and the story. Okay. My last Alfred Hitchcock on this list. My number 7. Yeah, number 7 is Rope. Essentially a one-act movie, but it works so well in this one, which is basically this story about these two guys that commit a murder, and they essentially have a party while the body is still in the room in a trunk, basically. And it's like a whodunit where James Stewart is trying to figure out what's going on in this party, why is this happening, and then the elements the gears start working in his head, and he slowly begins to understand what's going on and why these kids did what they did. It's amazing. This is a really great Hitchcock movie. Hitchcock really knew how to do psychological movies, and it's one of his best. Okay. Number 6. We have The Martian. Literally one of Ridley Scott's best movies, best sci-fi. This is the kind of movie that I would suggest to somebody, if they want to see a main character think through their situation, which in this case is Matt Damon's character, trapped in space, but he's a botanist. So he has to basically grow enough food to survive in space before the rescue team can save him. And just the trial and error of him surviving in space, it's amazing. It is an amazing movie. And again, like psychological, a lot of my movies and even I didn't realize this, a lot of my movies are psychological, really, but psychological works. They're like thinking man movies, which is what this is, like a thinking man's movie in how he's gonna survive on his own in space. Okay, we got number 4 right here. Actually, number 5. Number 5 is Guardians of the Galaxy. Yes, it's Guardians of the Galaxy 2 on the cover. It had the cover that popped more, so I put Guardians 2 inside with Guardians. This is pretty much the best team-up movie that I can think of for like a superhero, where you just see a bunch of anti-heroes just come together to work as a team to solve a bigger threat. Literally, just one of the best, I would say. Followed by Doctor Strange at number 4. Doctor Strange, literally, my favorite superhero, current superhero movies from the current ones. I love the idea of seeing a flawed hero become better, basically. And it's the only superhero movie that I can think of where the hero won by making the villain rage quit because he was in an endless loop where he could not get out. It's literally the funniest idea ever. Essentially, Dormammu rage quit because he saw no way of winning in his situation because him and Doctor Strange were just in a loop where he would just continually be killing him and nothing else. He would not progress any forward. So literally, rage quitting. Awesome. Best superhero movie ever. Superman the movie. Richard Donner, honestly, he really made something amazing with this movie in 1978. So he did not have the benefit of CGI here. Practical. Practical effects work. Literally. I really don't know how much more I can talk about this movie. Christopher Reeve is the embodiment of everything that makes Superman work. That's why I felt that Man of Steel was so polarizing, because it took the color that made Superman's world work and just took it away and made him emo Superman. That's why I was not a huge fan of where Man of Steel went, because it just took away the elements of Superman's nature. And that's why I'm so glad that this new variation of Superman, nothing against Henry Cavill as an actor. Henry Cavill as an actor redeemed himself with the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League, because he's an amazing actor. When the script suits him, he is a great actor and he can really make Superman work, but it just felt like DC didn't trust him enough with Man of Steel, and they didn't trust him enough with it to just play the role, to where even like his second movie, Dawn of Justice, was basically a vehicle with Batman in it, pretty much, because they didn't trust him enough to just have his own sequel to really just come into his own as Superman. They just rushed into pretty much Batman, and because they wanted to get to Justice League as quickly as possible to catch up with Marvel. That's okay, but it doesn't work for me because it just felt rushed and just the elements weren't there. Whereas Donner, he did 2 amazing Superman movies, Superman 1 and Superman 2. Superman 2 would have been great if it was just his cut only, before the cuts and reshoots happen, which is what happened with Superman 2 and why Superman 2 is the way that it is. Best superhero movie ever. If anybody ever asks what superhero movie they should start with, Superman. Superman the Extended Cut. Now, number 2. Aliens. My second favorite movie of all time. A movie that has been with me since pretty much middle school-ish. This used to be my number 1 favorite movie of all time because James Cameron just really made those elements of Alien work by giving it that Ronald Reagan war type Reaganomics, basically. Like, this is the epitome of like Reaganomics. It's an amazing movie, and then it also kind of has ties of like Vietnam War because that was happening at the time, and that's what Cameron was kind of working with to make this movie what it is. And also, just honorable mention: best cut of Alien anthology that you can get because of the extras. Literally, there are 4 movies in this one and 4 extra disc worth of extras for each movie. It's amazing and I love it. So, my favorite in my collection for sure. And my number one favorite movie of all time, Back to the Future. Lightning in a Bottle, best movie ever. I can literally watch the Back to the Future trilogy just in general, 1, 2, and 3 in one afternoon and never get bored, and I've done it before. If anybody ever asks if I'm trapped on an island and I'm allowed to bring one movie with me, what's that one movie? Back to the Future. I love Back to the Future so much. I literally have it up there on VHS behind the Terminator and Slimer as well. It's right up there on VHS because that's a display piece. Okay, guys, so that's it. That was me talking about my favorite movies of all time. I hope you had fun, and I hope you maybe figured out some new movies to kind of check out the next time you have like a movie night. And definitely, if you do, get back to me and let me know what you thought. Because, I mean, this is my list of my favorite movies. I hope you guys were okay with my thoughts on my favorite movies. Because, I mean, it is my list of my favorite movies. And I just wanted to talk about my favorite movies for about almost 40 minutes now. Okay. Talk to you later, guys. Peace. Boom.